titled this episode, Stop Throwing Money Away, Why Your Marketing is Failing. And the reality is that some of you may not be spending money on marketing at all, but the message that I want you to understand from this conversation is that when we need more clients, when we think we need more sales, our knee-jerk reaction is I need to go and find more leads. I need to go and identify where these people are hiding. And the reality is that you probably have the leads that you need. You probably have the opportunities already, and we're simply not executing on those opportunities. So what I want to do is I want to kind of take you through maybe 5 or 6 steps that you can take in refining how you approach marketing and how you approach intake so that you can maximize the opportunity that's in front of you. I work with lots of law firms, and I'm telling you, most of them are failing in this area. So let's get started. And the first is I want you to understand that you need to choose the channel or the medium. Don't let the channel or the medium choose you. And what I mean by this is so many times we get marketed to by a marketing vendor, and that marketing vendor does one thing really well. So maybe they are a Google LSA provider, or maybe they're a Google Ads provider, or maybe they do SEO, or maybe they do meta ads. Whatever the thing is that they do, they're going to come to you and they're going to convince you that this is the thing you need to do to market your firm. And when we respond to their marketing and we respond to their messaging and they promise us the world and we say, okay, this is where I'm going to invest, we've already done it wrong. Because the right way to approach marketing is to look at your specific target market and understand where in the buyer's cycle they are. Understand where they're showing up so that you can show up there with the right message so to get in front of them and get them to the conversation. Real quick, the buyer cycle, somebody is either unaware they have a problem, they're problem aware that they have a problem, but they don't know what the solution is. They're solution aware. They know that there's a solution. They know this is the solution, but they don't know who provides that solution. Company aware, where they're aware that your law firm is the one that provides the solution for this problem. And then there's product aware, which is they don't know exactly, a company aware, they don't know exactly what it is they have to buy from you, and you educate them on what it is that they need, and then they purchase. Depending on where they are in that buying cycle, that is going to affect how they respond to whatever message you put into the marketplace. It's also going to change how you approach the whole sales conversation. For example, somebody gets arrested for a DUI. They already know they have a problem. They probably already know that the solution is that they probably need a defense attorney to help them, right? And they simply need to know about you and your firm being the defense attorney to help them. So Google Ads work really well because somebody's searching for the solution. They're saying, I need a criminal defense attorney near me. Or they're asking questions like, what is the best way to get out of a DUI? And the answer to that is going to include, you need an attorney. So Google search is a perfect place for that business. On the flip side, let's take another example. Let's go to estate planning. Most people walk around not even knowing they need an estate plan, or they know that they need some sort of planning around their estate, but they don't understand why. They don't understand what it is. And it's certainly not a priority, right? I didn't just get arrested. That's causing this, right? It's just that I'm getting older. I'm having a life-changing event. So I'm having a child. It's something that I think about, or I'm married off my last child and it's just me and my wife now. It's another event that happens, or I'm retiring. Those triggering events could cause me to think about it, but most people don't walk around even knowing that they need an estate plan. So when you come into the market, if you run Google Ads, you're only going to capture people who are looking for a solution, but if they don't know if they have a problem, they're not looking for a solution. So we have to educate the market on the fact that there is a problem to solve before we can tell them that the solution is you need a trust or a will, right? And then once we educate them, then we can educate them on the fact that we provide that. But they have to first understand that they need it. So we have to approach it differently. And that's why for estate planning, one of the best mediums for selling it is to host an informational session, a workshop, a webinar, something like that, where you're educating your target market on the fact that they even have a problem and have a need that needs to be solved. So the way we approach the marketplace depends entirely on where in the buyer cycle our target market is. And I will tell you, most law firms don't approach it that way. Most law firms say, oh, I need a marketing vendor. I'm just going to answer the call the next time somebody calls and we're going to just move with them. So you need to decide your channel or your medium based on a deep understanding of where your market is. And then when you do that, I'm still not thinking that you should go and do it yourself, right? Like, the answer is not you. So then you should get a vendor. But you don't, once again, don't let the vendor select you. You select the vendor. What I mean by this is you've done the research. You've figured out that what you need to do is you need to run workshops. Go and find 3 marketing vendors that help you fill a workshop and vet them, interview them, ask them to talk to their past clients, to their testimonials, right? Or ask them for testimonials. Ask them to show you what the investment is and what the return on that investment is. Ask them to show you how they're going to measure that. What level of engagement are they going to have in this process? Are they going to help you to understand how to run your event, or are they just going to fill the room, right? Understand their capabilities, understand their track record, and approach the decision of hiring them having done your due diligence and your research. So many people just take their word for it. Now, there are a lot of ethical vendors out there, but there are also unethical vendors out there. There are people who will tell you anything to get your business. We want to make sure that we have vetted them at least to the best of our ability. It's kind of like if you go to hire somebody to be on your staff, right? You're going to, if you go through the right motions and ask the right questions and understand who they are coming in, you're going to eliminate most of the bad hires. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a bad hire, but your likelihood of having a good hire is way better. Same thing when you're selecting a vendor. You go through the motions. It doesn't mean somebody is going to slip through that's not going to work out, but you will have increased your chances of success significantly. Now, once you have chosen your marketing channel, you've chosen your vendor, now you have to hold your vendor accountable. This came up in an internal meeting earlier today, where one of our folks who's supporting law firm owners in our coaching programs, he brought up a good point. He said, like, look, one of the things that our marketing coach was talking to our coaching clients about is just the fact that most firm owners don't hold their vendors accountable. You're not actually having recurring meetings with them. You should be meeting with your marketing vendor at a minimum once a month. And they should be providing you information on what their marketing is doing, what the results are. You should have the return on your investment. You should know what that is. And you should be holding them accountable for what it is that you're trying to achieve. So marketing is not an exact science. It's not a precise science. You can't have somebody come in and just turn it on and it's just going to work. Even if it's the same type of client, same type of geographic region, there's going to be nuanced differences. There's going to be testing involved. There's going to be transitions that have to happen to change what we're doing. And we want to make sure that we're approaching that entire process proactively, which means we're not sitting around expecting that because we hired an agency that they're going to go ahead and execute to the best of their ability. The reality is that account executives are employees of their organization. They're going to have good employees. They're going to have bad employees, just like any other business. You don't control who they assign you, but you do control whether that person gives you the information, whether you feel like they're actually doing something, whether changes are happening. But you can only understand where you are with them if you are proactively getting that feedback, if you're having recurring conversations with them. Our fractional CFO side of our business, where we help firms with from 2 to 15 million in revenue to scale their business, to unlock a profit margin that's significant, one of the biggest black holes we find with them is the marketing bucket, where there's so much investment going on into marketing and there's very little measuring of the success of that. And one of the most powerful things that we have done with our clients coming in is to create a dashboard and be able to see how we're doing, and then have real conversations with agencies that our clients are using to say, hey, this needs a minimum return on ad spend of 3x and 5x is the goal, but you're operating at 1.5. We're losing money right now. We need to figure out how we can either turn this around or we need to turn it off. And then they got to put their money where their mouth is. They got to go and get to work, roll up their sleeves and figure out on your account how to get you to that number. That only happens if you're having these conversations with your vendor. So you got to hold them accountable. Now, we're going to switch gears, right? Because there's two pieces in the process of bringing on a client. There's marketing and there's intake or sales. Marketing is the pursuit of bringing somebody to your firm as a lead, getting the phone to ring, getting that email form submitted, getting that lead into the door. The moment that somebody contacts your firm, there's a baton handoff. Think of the relay race where you run to the end and then you have to hand the baton to the next person. They grab it and they run back the other way, right? That baton handoff happens between marketing and sales. And the moment that lead comes in, that baton is handed off and sales is now running to bring that client into the business. That potential new client, that lead, from there until they become a client, we're completely and absolutely relying on the sales and intake team. So you can have highly effective, highly efficient marketing, but if that baton handoff doesn't happen, or if you've got a slow runner in the second part of the race, you're still going to lose the race, right? So even if we did all things right in the marketing bucket, if we suck on the intake side, we're not going to get the results that we want. So the next few things that I'm going to share with you are really important because they're related to getting that intake cycle, that intake process right. So first of all, Law Firm Marketing Pros did an analysis, and from that analysis, they suggest that most marketing failures in 2026 aren't due to the ads themselves, but because firms serve qualified leads to faulty intake systems. Now, research aside, I can tell you anecdotally, I see this all the time. I see this all the time. And at every level of business, we worked with a law firm doing $50 million in annual revenue. And well, we were trying to increase the business, scale the business. What we found is simply hiring more salespeople without investing another dollar in marketing just brought in more clients. What that told us was that there's more volume than we're able to handle. There's more leads coming in than we're able to handle. And it's not just, oh, we added a few salespeople. They had a sales team of 20 people. And that sales team, when I was working with them, grew to 55 people and their target was 75, right? So this opportunity happens at every level of business, whether you're a solo or whether you're doing 10 million in revenue. Some of the untapped potential is simply just having the people to take the calls, having the people to take the leads. And this is also the place where that's the hardest to measure, because when you miss that phone call and it goes to voicemail or an answering service or doesn't get answered at all, and now we're chasing that potential client back, or we're trying to get them back on the phone, even if you're doing it 2 minutes later, the chances of reaching them goes down. And I'm going to share with you some statistics on that in a moment. But that's a missed opportunity. And what we tend to do is when we chase them and we don't reach them, and even if we have a great chase cycle and we've done all the things, we've called, we've emailed, we've texted, we've done it for 7 days straight, we tend to mark that lead as unqualified, right? It's a dead lead. The reality is it may not have been. It may have been a very much alive lead that we simply didn't answer the phone on. And this is where things get hairy, because the argument might be correct, but we don't have a good metric to measure the lost opportunities, to measure whether we need to increase staffing in our sales department to be able to address that. So I'm going to talk about speed to lead, which is the most important thing. And I'm going to talk about missed opportunity and all of that. So here's some statistics for you. So we'll first throw that out. Now, you've heard some of these before, but in 2024, Clio did their legal trends report, and they did a secret shopper study of 500 law firms. And what they found is that 48% of firms were essentially unreachable. Those are their words, essentially unreachable by phone. What they also found is that only 33% of firms even bothered to respond to that inquiry. So if you answer your phone or call people back from your voicemail or respond to an email request, you are in the top 33% of law firms. Meaning, and I have clients all the time that are worried about the competition. The reality is you'll have no competition, right? Or very little competition. 2/3 of law firms out there are not even competing against you because they're not answering the phone or calling people back. Another research study from Lead Connect shows that 78% of customers buy from the company that responds first. If you aren't the first to answer the phone or call them back, you've already lost the case. In fact, the odds of qualifying a lead drop by 10 times after just the first 5 minutes of silence. Now, what's interesting is that I use this to demonstrate to our clients and our coaching programs and our CFO engagements the elasticity of the price you charge, because so many of us are worried about what the next law firm is charging. And the pushback I get all the time when I say, hey, you should raise your prices, is I can't because other people are not charging that much. And the reality is that most people are not price shopping. They're not going from firm to firm and checking the price. They have a problem they need to solve. And you're talking to them. They're not going to continue dialing the phone. There are some that will, but it's a small percentage. And there's massive opportunity on all sides of the business by just understanding this, by understanding that simply having that phone call answered is the highest value thing you can do in the marketing and intake process. A 2025 study by Hennessy Digital revealed that 26% of law firms do not respond to leads at all within the first 7 days. Once again, just more proof that there's a lot of really, really poor follow-up that's happening in the market, which means there's a lot of opportunity for you. There's this concept called speed to lead. It is not new. It is not just for law firms. It exists for every industry. The moment that the phone rings, the faster you answer it, the more quality that call is, the higher your chance of success. And if that phone rolls over and rings multiple times to different groups in your business, and somebody sits with that phone ringing for 4 or 5 rings, the chances of them hanging up are pretty high. If it rolls to an answering service, guess what? I believe in answering services. I think you should have them as a fail-safe, as a stopgap, as a last step. But 90% of consumers know it's an answering service answering that phone. And they know that they're not talking to the person they need to talk to. And therefore, their need has not been met by the fact that the call was answered. So for some people, leaving a message is going to be sufficient, and they're going to wait for that call back. And if that call back doesn't happen quickly enough, they're not waiting anymore. For other people, even leaving the message is something they don't want to do. They want to talk to somebody right now. We are in an age where we want instant results. If I need diapers for my kid, I can Instacart it, and in 2 hours, I can have diapers for my kid at the door. I'm not waiting for the weekend to go to Walmart and buy them. Even if it's not Instacart, Amazon is going to deliver the next day or even in the middle of the night. We're in a society and an environment where people want instant access to answers and results. Nobody wants to wait for a callback. Speed to lead is the ultimate name of the game. If you're going to invest efforts in marketing, you have to have the facilities to take that call when it comes in, to take that email when it comes in. Once it does come in, there is this big black hole that happens. Even if you take that phone call and you talk to that person, what does the follow-up process look like? This is another area where overall we really suck at what we do, right? There's so much technology available to you. There's so much opportunity available to you that you can simply put an automated email sequence, automated text campaign, and have somebody in your firm do manual outreach. And you have this process of follow-up and chasing that happens over a period of 7 days from when the lead comes in. That could be highly effective. But without that, we're just hoping somebody's going to pick up the phone and call them, hoping they're going to call us again. That lead's done. We've wasted it, right? So we need to have a systemized follow-up and chase cycle. And we need to be very clear about that. We're going to do this for 7 days. We're going to do this for 14 days. We're going to indoctrinate them into our firm. We're going to tell them why we're so awesome. And we're going to keep inviting them back to have a call with us. We're going to send them a booking link. We're going to reach out to them by phone. We're going to text them. And we're going to try to engage with them and get them involved in a conversation with somebody on our intake and sales team. The follow-up and chase is not just to chase a potential lead that has not spoken to us. We also need a follow-up process and make sure we're not dropping the ball after we've spoken to them. So if somebody did not decide to become a client on the first call, if they didn't do an on-the-spot purchase, we need to continue to converse with them. We need to continue to engage with them. And so often, our sales and intake team is on to the next call, on to the next opportunity, that we write off the one we just had. We don't do the follow-up. And the biggest losers here, or the biggest transgressors in this, are firm owners themselves. And the truth is you don't even realize why you're doing it, but this is usually a solo's problem, and maybe solo, maybe you have one attorney on staff. When your staff is fully booked, or when you are at full capacity, psychologically, you don't want another client. Now, you're not sitting there thinking, oh, I don't want another client, so I'm not going to call this person back. But underneath the hood, psychologically, you have deprioritized getting this person as a client. And what happens is because we've deprioritized that, we are not making following up with them a high priority on our priority list, which means we never get to it. We intend to, we say we're going to, but the reality is we don't. And this is a problem, not just in the legal industry, this is everywhere. And it's a symptom. And it's a symptom of not having the enough resources in place, not having the bandwidth that you need to be able to serve more clients. I do an entire presentation to law firm owners, and if you haven't checked it out before, you should. And trying to remember what the URL for it is. We'll put it in the show notes. I don't remember what the URL to register is, but we do this training. So if you want to go, and it's free, you can come in and register for the next one that we run, where I can highlight to you and show you how much you owning all of these different things is holding you back from the growth of your business. But understand that if you have a poor follow-up process from initial conversation to try to get somebody to make a decision to work with you, 9 times out of 10, it's not a process problem. It's a psychological problem, and it's because we don't have the runway or the bandwidth. It's either our sales team is too busy, so they're on to the next opportunity, hoping that they're going to close the next one, and they don't lean into the current one that they have, or they have it's somebody who understands the rest of our business, and they know we can't serve another client. If I bring this client in, it's going to create a backlog. It's going to create a customer service nightmare. And instead of trying to solve that problem, we just deprioritize the follow-up. Okay, the last 2 pieces of the puzzle. So we talked about the whole marketing side of it. We talked about speed to lead and following up and having a system and a process in place to follow up and chase people. The last piece is measuring everything. If we're not paying attention to what's happening and we're not measuring what's happening, then what are we doing? How do we know if we're successful? How do we know if the money we're spending is turning into the production that we want? We have anecdotal evidence. If the general direction of my business is it's getting better, I just attribute that to the investment that I'm making that is paying off. The reality is there could be other reasons why things are moving in the right direction. And this could just be a waste, and it could be costing me hard-earned money that could be going into my pocket as profit, and instead I'm investing it in marketing that's not working. One of our CFO clients, when they first came in, doing $6.5 million in revenue, 7% profit margin. We got them in the first 90 days from a 7% profit margin to a 23% profit margin. Guess how? We cut 6 Google Ads campaigns that weren't working. They were measuring, but nobody was paying attention to the numbers. All we did was come in the door and say, hey, you're spending $30,000 a month on marketing. Let's look at that. Let's see if it's producing results. And we looked at the data, and what we found was 1 campaign out of 7. 1 campaign out of 7 was producing results good enough to keep. The other 6 were not. We cut the other 6. Their spend went down from $25,000 or $30,000 a month to 7. And we instantly opened up the rest of those dollars to either be reallocated to a better marketing campaign that's working, but in this case, to the owner's pocket. Change the profit margin from 7% to 23% with simply that one change. Now, we did other things for that client, and I'm not belittling any of the other work that we do, but I'm highlighting the opportunity that is right in front of every single one of you. If we don't measure it, if we're not checking in on it, we're not going to be able to understand that it's not working, and we won't be able to make the adjustments necessary to get it to work or to turn it off. So measuring happens with 2 pieces. Number 1, attribution. We need to know where this client is coming from. The phone rings, somebody's calling in. I need to understand, how did they find me? Attribution is the tenet to all marketing. If you cannot provide some sort of attribution to where this came from, there is no way for me to measure whether my investment is paying off. And there are so many firms out there. We had a client on the fractional CFO side. They were doing $100,000 a month in marketing, $50,000 to TV and radio. The TV and radio, they had absolutely no attribution for. Just didn't know. And finally, after a number of months, we said, let's just turn it off. And let's see if we get less leads or less cases in the door over the next 3 months after turning it off. We can always turn it back on. But I didn't believe that it was driving the needle for them. So we did that, turned it off. And guess what? Not 1 case less of their average cases coming in because they turned it off. Now, I'm not saying that radio and TV don't work. They probably do work. But I do know that they had no way of knowing if it was working for them. And in reality, when we actually ran this test, it wasn't working for them. It doesn't mean that radio and TV don't work. It means that they need to approach it differently. A, you need to have some way of knowing that this is driving a certain amount of business, right? And B, maybe they actually needed to have different spots in different places saying different things. I don't know. We didn't get to diving into that, but I do know that $50,000 a month, $600,000 a year is a lot of money, no matter how small or big your business is. And the only way to know if that investment is effective is if you have attribution. Attribution is a technological phenomenon that is very, very much possible today. If somebody is coming through the internet and they're submitting a form, you absolutely must know where that's coming from. We can attach UTM codes to every single search, to every single way that somebody's coming in. And we should know if somebody is coming in through organic search, meaning it's our SEO that brought them there. Did they directly search for our firm name, meaning they probably heard about us somewhere and they're looking for us? Did they come in through a paid campaign? Did our ads bring them in? Which campaign was it? All of this information is readily available to us if it's set up properly. That is called attribution. Inbound phone calls. If you haven't heard of something called CallRail, you should. Because anybody who is spending money on marketing should have CallRail in place. CallRail sits between the world, dialing your phone number, and your office, phone ringing. It is an intermediary for the phone conversation. What it does is it allows you to create dedicated phone numbers for different things. So you can have a phone number that shows up on a page that changes depending on where you came from. So my website has my phone number in the top corner. That phone number can change based on where that person came from. So when they dial that phone number and they call into the firm, we know what number they dialed, and therefore we know where they came from. And you can also have CallRail record your calls. So it's now a tool that allows you to increase the training and the know-how and knowledge of your sales team. Attribution has to be incorporated if you're spending money on marketing. And if you don't have a marketing vendor who understands attribution, if your marketing vendor does not understand attribution, you should move on to a different vendor, because they are the ones, they're the professionals. They are the ones who should be setting this up for you, or at least guiding you on how to set it up. And it should be in their best interest that you're tracking this. If they have not made sure and insisted that you track this, they are not worth whatever you're paying them. Move on to a vendor who does. Attribution is the first step in tracking. The next step is creating some sort of dashboard for yourself to understand what's happening in your marketing. And it needs to be down to the campaign level. You need to be able to look at every single marketing effort that you have and say, what did this produce for my business in the last 30 days, the last 90 days, and what was the return on that investment? So for our clients, we're measuring all kinds of things, like what's our cost per lead? What's our cost per qualified lead? What's our cost per acquisition? So when we actually get a client, what did it cost us to acquire that client from beginning to end? What's our average client value for that particular source? What is our return on ad spend? So we spent $5,000 on ads for this particular effort. What was the return on that? If the return on that is less than 3x, we're cutting it. Now, in the early stages of a campaign, when we're first learning and we're adjusting, it's okay for it to operate for a period of time below 3x, because we know we're doing these things. But you enter into that conversation knowing that you're willing to invest. Let's say you're investing $10,000 a month, right? So I'm willing to invest $10,000 a month for 3 months during this learning process. And I'm just going to say that $30,000 is an investment. It's water under the bridge. If it produces results, great. If it doesn't, also great. And during those 90 days, we're tweaking, we're changing, we're iterating, we're constantly trying to move the needle to make it better, 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 better. But once we enter out of that initial cycle, however long that is, we now have to have a minimum level that we're willing to accept and a target that we're trying to get to. And my recommendation for paid sources is 3x to 5x, meaning 3x is the minimum, 5x is the ideal. Now, better than 5x is even better. So we have one client on the fractional CFO side, they're getting an 18x return on their marketing. They should be pouring every single dollar that they have into that marketing campaign. Now, the reality is there's a logistical nightmare of being able to serve all the clients that will bring in. So they're approaching it a little bit slower, but the reality is that they have a massive opportunity, because the cost to acquire a client is normally so great that we're throttled, we're limited based on our resources of how much we could bring in. But if you're getting a return that's a multiple of 10x or more, then we can just pour money into that opportunity, find more money, get more clients, serve more clients, make more money, right? Why is 3x the minimum? So 3x is the minimum because there's a direct cost involved in serving the client. So 1x would be our marketing cost is eating the whole thing. But our sales team also costs money. So our sales team is probably costing us somewhere between 5 and 10% of the revenue of the sale. Then our legal delivery team, whoever's delivering on that process, is probably about 40% at a minimum. So we've got 40 to 50% of revenue that's tied up in just the delivery of the service before we look at overhead, before we look at anything else. So what that translates into is about 1.8 times our marketing efforts is our break even. It doesn't make sense for anything below that for us to even invest those marketing dollars, because we're losing it on the fulfillment side. From 1.8 to 3, that's where we start to contribute to overhead. That's where we start to contribute to the non-specific costs that are related to serving this person. And those costs also are a decent percentage of our revenue, right? So we need to cover that too. So the sweet spot where we start to actually make a profit, a nice, a profit from a client coming in, is about a 3x return. And then where we should be able to make max profitability, what I call max profitability is a healthy business, has 30 to 40% profit margin, is when our paid sources are returning 5x or more on our ad spend. All of this would not be known if you weren't measuring it and dashboarding it. So when we look at how do we know what's going on, we need attribution and we need dashboarding. Those two things together give us a very powerful ability to be able to stay on top of this. And then we need a cadence once a month where we're looking at this and we're making adjustments. Our marketing vendor should be making adjustments all the time. Once a month is when we're meeting with that marketing vendor, looking at these metrics and saying, here's where we're at. So hopefully you're going to stop throwing money away, and you're going to stop blaming your marketing, saying the marketing is failing, and instead recognize that there's so many moving pieces to this engine, and we've got to get them all right for the engine to produce a well-oiled machine that we're trying to operate from. Rome wasn't built in a day. Give yourself some grace to get this all put together. But we've got to make sure that we're answering the phone on that first ring. We've got to have enough capacity or people in place to do that. And if we don't, we're leaving money on the table. We've got to make sure we're selecting our vendors and they're not selecting us. We got to be very purposeful in what we're actually investing in on the marketing side, that it's in alignment with where our customer is in their journey, and it's bringing the right people in the door. And then finally, we need to automate or systemize the follow-up process and make sure we're not dropping the ball along the way, and that we're doing everything we can to capture every lead and to talk to every lead that comes in. And then the last piece is we're measuring. We have attribution in place, we're dashboarding, and we're able to look at this and come at it and have the right meaningful conversations so that we could either cut the expense if it's not working, or lean into it, spend more on it if it's working really, really well. And in between, we're continuing to try to fine tune it, and we're going to start to continue to throw a little bit more money at it and see what happens. Hopefully this was helpful for you to think about this differently, to think about this in a new way. And I look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Take care. Bye for now.